Good morning, everyone. It's your boy Rome. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to explore Nik's Collection version 2. I'm sorry, version 4. Yeah, it's been one of those mornings. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what Nik's Collection version 4 actually is. So if you guys go over to the nikscollection.dxo.com, the link is in the description. You'll be able to take a look at what this software entails. So basically what you have here is a number of different panels that you can use independent of Photoshop, or you can use it as a part of Photoshop. And it has a ton of presets and lighting effects and camera effects and lens effects that you can use during your workflow. And even the U-points and things like that, the adjustments, I don't really use them a lot. The color controls, things like that, I don't use. I just use more of the presets themselves. But I do want to experiment with these in the future to get a better understanding of how they're utilized. Now, there's a number of YouTubers that I've seen that use this software almost on a daily basis, at least for the videos that they produce. If you're interested in this software, you can go over, and there's a link in the description, and they have a 30-day free trial where you can download the full version of the software, Mac, PC. I'm not sure if it's compatible with Linux, but I know it definitely works on Mac and PC. And you can go over and take a look at exactly what they have. Within that panel, there's going to be a number of different applications built in. We'll look at some of those as we open this in Photoshop. But today, we will not be using this in Photoshop because I am running a beta version of my operating system. And for some reason, it's having a huge effect on my Photoshop. But I'll show you what it looks like in Photoshop to get started. So one of the cool things that it does is it adds this panel. Now this panel can't be docked. You can't dock it like you can, normal docks that you could dock them here or over here in Photoshop. So it just kind of floats around, sometimes to a point it's annoying because it just seems to be always in the way. But you can click on these little 2 dots and it will minimize it like so. And then you can click on the minus and it will just bring it all the way down to the bottom of your screen. And then by just clicking here, it'll bring it back. So usually what I do, if I'm using it, I'll leave it up like this temporarily, and then I'm able to make my selections. But if you go over to your filters, you will also have that in your filters, and you'll be able to open an image in your filter from your filter stack. So that's one way to do it. But like I said, recently with the new update on the Mac, I've been having some problems with Photoshop running some of these plugins and things. And for the most part, it just seems like Photoshop just doesn't want to open, because there will be times where it will literally just not open at all. I have to keep closing it and opening it and closing it and opening it. But anyway, that's for another video. So we're going to minimize Photoshop, and this is what's annoying about this panel. So I'm going to minimize Photoshop, and as you notice, the panel is still here. So it doesn't make a difference. It's because the panel is not technically connected to Photoshop. It's just kind of, when you open Photoshop and the panel is there, excuse me, it just floats and it's available to you, but it's not necessarily a part of the application itself. And you can close it completely if you choose to. So we're just going to go ahead and minimize that, and you see here again, it just goes right back down to the bottom. So usually, if I'm going to use this application, I would be using it in Photoshop, but like I said, today we're not going to. So I'm just going to go to the actual folder where this is housed, and you can see here I have all of the different plugins for it. So I have Analog Efex Pro, Color Efex Pro 4, Define 2, HDR Efex Pro 2, Sharpen Pro 3. This is the output sharpener. Sharpen Pro 3 raw pre-sharpening, whatever that does. I've never used it. Then you have Silver Efex Pro, which is a very, very cool program for people who are doing black and white. And then you have Baverza 3. Another plugin that I don't use very often, but I am going to start experimenting with it a little bit more. But today what we're going to be looking at is Analog Efex Pro 2. So let's just click on that and give it a chance to open. So usually, even in Photoshop, it's going to open as this small little window. You can always expand this window as large as you want to, or you can even go full screen with it if you choose to. So that's totally up to you. Now, the difference is in Photoshop, if this was being utilized through Photoshop, whatever image you're working on would already appear here. But since we're opening it as a standalone, there's no image. So you would go here to File, Open Image, and then you would choose the image that you want to work on. So we're just going to choose one of the images that I was working on last night on my Instagram Live, and we'll let that load. This software is not optimized for the M1 Max from what I can tell. It is compatible, but I don't believe it's optimized. But this software has a tendency to be very slow anyway, so take that with a grain of salt. So usually when you first open it, it will default to the first preset. And then from that point, you can go in and choose other presets. So right now we're under the classic camera mode. Let's go ahead and make this full screen. We're under the classic camera mode. And if we scroll down here, we'll see that there is 6, 8, 9 different presets that you can choose from that are already here. And any one of them that you click on, it's going to evaluate the image and then apply that new preset to the image. So then you get whatever that effect is. Now over here to the right, you have a working panel. So you have your basic adjustments. If you click on the little cog here, you can adjust the detail, the brightness, the contrast, saturation. So you could go in here and you could bring the brightness down, or you could adjust it however you like. The control points, like I said, I don't use these a lot, but I'll show you what they are. If you click on the control points and you add one of these control points to your image, well, let's see, am I not doing it right? Okay, so there's your control points. So all of the things that you see up here are now in these control points down here. So your saturation, your contrast, your brightness, your detail extraction, all of these are here. And then you can move this around wherever you want to. You can also enlarge it based on the size that you want it to be. But so let's say, for instance, if we're just adjusting the size of it, and then we wanted to adjust the detail, or in this case, the brightness. So it's a real cool, tool if, it's something that you're interested in. Again, like I said, I don't use these a lot, so it's not something that I would really be interested in. So I'll just delete that. Then you can go down a little further, and you have the dust and lint effect under this specific camera. So you can go in here and you can choose different semi-realistic looking dust effects, or effects that would normally occur if you were shooting regular film or something like that. And then you can also adjust the strength, so you can determine how much of it you want to be seen or how little of it you want to be seen. So, and this also has a control point, so you can do basically the same thing with control points if you wanted to put them in a specific area. The advantage to the control points is just that, you have the ability to put them in a specific area. And as you see here, as I adjust this, it kind of brings it in and it adjusts it based on where I have the slider placed. So if we go here, you also have scratches. So if we click on one of those, give it a few seconds, and it should apply it here in just a few seconds. And you start to see those scratches. Let's go with one that's going to be a little bit easier to see. And like I said, it takes a few seconds. It depends on the speed of your computer. And I mean, realistically, this should just be whizzing through. So I'm hoping that in the future, we will see a M1 version of this. So you can see all the scratches and things like that. And of course, you would just bring that down to however you wanted the effect to apply to your image. You know, and you just may want just a little bit of it in there, because I mean, anything this far, it's just going to be way, way too much. You know, unless you're trying to give it the effect of a found image, you know, like something that was found in your, you know, grandmother's box of photos or something like that, and you want to kind of give it that effect. So, you know, that's another thing that you can play with. So let's turn that off. Then you have your vignette. You can determine the amount of the vignette. So either lightening or darkening your vignette. You can determine if it's going to be circular or more oblong, as well as the size. So you could really bring it in and focus, you know, in detail on your subject. And you also have the ability to move the vignette around by just grabbing this little circle here and just kind of dragging it around. And you see it in real time, what's being applied. Then, what's next? Here's some of your film types. And you can look here, you know, you have warm, cool, subtracting, black and white, and a black and white tone. So if you wanted to create a black and white from this, you know, whether it's sepia or any of the black and white looks, you know, from vintage film, you could go in and just choose these gradients that would give you that effect. You know, so that's pretty cool. Like I said, it has a lot of possible things that you can do with it. And then another thing that you can do, once you've gone through and let's say you've created all these different things that you like, and you say, oh my God, I'm gonna have to come back and redo all of those all over again. No, you could just click here on save, and then you could save a preset. You could just give it a name, whatever the name is you wanna call it, you know, and then it would save it. So let's just call this classic look. And then it's gonna be here under your customs. So you'll be able to find that relatively easy, but I don't want to keep that. So let's go back to camera. And the last thing here in this panel, other than a few other things like your custom import, your history will show you pretty much everything that you've done to that image. And if you want to go back and look at that, you know, you'll have that accessible here. So that's custom, and then to camera. Then all the way down here to the very bottom, it says, am I feeling lucky? Well, if you click on this, it will randomly generate different looks based on, you know, whatever it is that it thinks that, you know, would work for that image. I don't believe that there's necessarily, you know, I put this in quotes, you know, some type of AI in effect, because I think it's just randomizing based on what it has available, which basically what AI does as well. So it just gives you different looks, and then you still have the ability to go in and further enhance that, and it shows you which of the gradients is being chosen whenever it chooses one of the gradients for that look, you know, for this classic camera. So if you go up here to where it says classic camera, there's a little arrow pointing toward the photo. If you click on that, but before we get there, let me show you the other little tools that are here above. You can do a split screen where you can see the before and after. You can do 2-up where you can see a before and after. And it will give you the basic information about your image, like this is a 15 megabyte image. You know, all that information will be down here below it. And then you can just go back to whatever the original image is. But if you click on this little arrow, another panel will pop up. And if you see here under tools, you have a bunch of different tools that you can utilize. So you can do a light leak, you can do lens distortion, bokeh, zoom and rotation, motion blur, double exposure, light leaks. You know, some of the things that we looked at before, you know, your dirt and scratches. Photo plates, that's going to make it look more like a large format camera's film, vignette, film type, multiple lens, you know, is a really cool one. Your framing, and then you have your levels and your curves. But also over here, you have different camera types. So let's say, for instance, we went to double exposure. I've used this one quite a few times. So if we click on double exposure, it'll start to generate double exposure versions of the image. And just like anything else, you can go in and you can adjust these. As you see here, it has a double exposure of her, and we can move this around, to different areas. If you wanted to recenter her, then you can also adjust how you're rotating the strength of the image itself. Now, what I do with this, as an example of what I did last night in the Instagram video, Instagram Live, I would just click here, and let's say I would go and find another image that I wanted to use for my double exposure. And then I could just click on that image, and then what it would do is it would substitute and then replace that image here. So then you could still go in and you could adjust the image. You can move it around. You can adjust the balance of how much of the image. If you want to kind of give it that, photo taken through a window look, something like that. You can adjust the exposure. You can come down here to light leaks. And if you wanted to add a little bit of light leaking in or something like that, you can do that. So let's just pick one. We'll just go over the top so we can see what everything looks like. And then you have soft, crisp, and dynamic. So if we go with, say, dynamic, and we picked maybe this one, give it a few seconds. And you see just a little bit of the light effect coming in, but then you can then always raise the strength of it. And it just depends on which one you go with as to how much of the effect is going to be visible in the image. And you can use this, think about this like as if you're working with layers and you had a certain effect that you were trying to achieve. Let's move that light leak over just a little bit where it almost looks like rays of light, coming across glass or something like that. So then, like I said, that's another way that you could apply this. And then you could do the same thing once, if you don't see anything that you like here and you've gone through your vignetting and film types and all the other stuff that you've done here, you could always go in here again and just randomize this by just clicking here, and it will just generate something random. And you can just do that to your heart's content until you find something that you like. And then if you realize you've gone too far, you say, oh, I like the one before, you can just hit Command Z, and it should go back to the previous one. It takes a few seconds, but it'll go back to the previous one, all the way to where you first brought the image in. You just keep hitting Command Z, and it'll take you all the way back to the original image. Let's go. So, and as you see, we can go all the way back. So if we go back up here to our little arrow, I'm just picking things at random. So let's look at the multiple lens. So if we click on that, it gives you something, I think we see like in Instagram and some of the Instagram plugins that people use all the time for creating these type of looks. And then what you can do once it finds where it wants, you can move these around, you can zoom in on them, you can make them larger. Like say for instance, if you wanted to really focus in on the coffee cup as an example for this one, and say with this one, maybe you really wanted to focus in on the bagel, on that bagel down there. I don't know exactly why you'd want to do that, but let's just say that's the look you were going for. And then maybe you wanted to bring her a little bit further forward and then adjust her over just a touch, But then, like I said, you have all of these different presets. You can do the 4 up, something like this, and you can still adjust them. You could still zoom in as you saw in the previous one. And like I said, some of these are cool. If you're just creating content for Facebook or for Instagram or something like that, here's something that you can use that you can create some really really cool effects. And then it still has that same am I feeling lucky button down here. You can just click on that, and then it will go through and do basically the same thing. It'll just go through and randomize and see what it can find. And then you have the different ways over here under the multiple lens tab where you can determine, how you want it to be set up. So for instance, here's your 4 up. Here's 4 up again across. 4 portrait, 4 landscape, 3 portrait. So, you have all of those cool things that you can do with it. And then, like I said, you can play with this to your heart's content. You'd be amazed at the things you'll find here. We looked at the double exposure. We looked at the multiple camera. We can look at, some of the black and whites that they have, as well as the color cast is a really cool one. But let's go to the black and white. And it creates presets here. Let's just click on this one. And as I said, timing, depending on your computer, will determine how fast this software will run, but it will get the job done. I've rarely had a situation where the software would crash. It just, it's just very time consuming. So, here you get that very vintage looking black and white. You can still go over here and adjust your, choose a different gradient. You can adjust the strength of the gradient. So if you chose something different, you could still go in here and bring that effect down. And then we could soften it, or we can make it harder. It just depends on what it is you're trying to achieve. I mean, the image that you're working with and what you want that image to look like. And then also, you can also randomize this again, just to play with it. Now, one of the panels that I use in Photoshop occasionally is Affinity Photo, and it does basically the same thing. It just randomizes, presets, and it's a combination of, curves and gradient maps and things like that to get that specific look. So, like I said, you can play with this. It depends on your style of photography, but you can create some really unique looks from this. Let's look at one more. Which one was it? The vintage camera. I like that one. So this gives us, some more of your vintage film looks. And these are things that you would associate with maybe the 60s, back in the day when everyone was shooting film. And it also creates this cool little border. So if that's something that you wanted to, have in your image, or you'll see some of them will have kind of a frayed look that almost looks like it maybe from like a Polaroid camera or something like that. So again, it just depends on what it is you're trying to produce. So that's a pretty cool one. It looks like a really old Polaroid effect. And then you can still go in, like I said, and choose a different gradient. You can go to a warm look. You're only limited by your imagination and to get in here and really play with this software. So I think that's about it. I mean, there's a few other things in here that you guys can play with, but let's look at the Vogue one. So here's an effect. I'm not going to say this is something you would normally see in magazines because it's not, but it does have a very unique look. So we'll give it a second to load. So it's kind of like a blurry camera look, like like a motion effect, and then you can still go in and adjust that however you want to. I like that one, just for something very dreamy and ethereal, or something like that. And then here's one that is another black and white effect, And I mean, with the image that we're looking at here, obviously all of these, can be suitable. Some more so than others. So it just depends on the image that you're working with. Let's see exactly what this one looks like. Yeah, so this almost looks to me like something you would see in an old magazine or in a newspaper or something like that, you know. So let's adjust the contrast a little bit. I'm gonna kind of wash it out to give it kind of like that old newspaper magazine, paper magazine style look, you know. And then you can just, you know, hit, if you like it, hit save and, you know, move on to the next thing. But if we look at the before and after, you know, that's significant. I'm a fan of that. So as I said, guys, you know, most of the software that I'm showing you, none of the software am I sponsored by any of these software manufacturers. They don't even know I exist. What I'm showing you is things that you can use to enhance your workflow, speed up your workflow, to enhance your creativity, because you can play with these and, you know, find if it's something that's going to work for you. So with this, you know, by downloading the trial, it's 30 days. You can play with it every day, or you can play with it once a week, or maybe just, you know, downloading some images and just, you know, bringing them into the application and just starting to play with them. And whether you have Photoshop or don't have Photoshop, as you see, this software will still work for you even as a standalone. So, you know, give it a shot, you know. I mean, it's free. Well, I mean, it's free to try. So, all right, guys, so I'm going to bring this live to an end. I hope everyone has an amazing weekend and, you know, finish off their Sunday, you know, spend some time with the family and friends and, you know, cook something nice tonight. I will catch you guys again live on Tuesday. So until then, stay safe, take care of yourselves, wash your hands, wear a mask, and create something amazing. Peace. I'm out.